And so to get started, I actually, the mention of Randy Burgess usually gets me some kudos and some frowns, but mostly kudos because he is the best coach I've ever had in my career. And he took me to a goalie clinic because he admitted way back when he knew nothing about goalkeeping, and we went to this clinic and there were 40 goalies there and I got really nothing out of it. And so he and I came back and started really focusing on creating a set, just one set of fundamentals and technique. And from that, he's produced some other phenomenal goalies, Janai being one of them who's here with us. And so that's where I want to start. And this is a really exciting way of teaching goalkeeping because it creates one core set of fundamentals instead of what do I do in this situation? And then what do I do in this situation? And what do I do in this situation? And so by fine-tuning our habits and the very little amount of time that we have to react to shots, we are creating this one set of moves that then allows us to attack every shot, except for the dreaded lob shot, which I'll go over in a moment. And so that's really the hope. That's what I'm hoping to impart to you. I brought a video. Brad and Wolf and I did a set of videos about 12 years ago, so it'll look like my little brother in the video, to help demonstrate some of these things since we're not in the water. And so I just want to get right to perfecting the move. And I have the word "the move" in quotes because, again, what I want our goalies to think about is there's one set of fundamentals for every shot, and we're really simplifying it, and that's allowing us to hone in on that core set of fundamentals. And so what we start with is a set of headers. I heard the word guru used in my introduction, which I cannot accept because my goalie coach at Stanford, Bronco, is the guru of goalkeeper coaching. He's no longer with us. I always refer to him as the Yoda of goalkeeping. And we went to his home when I was at Stanford, and in his freezing cold pool with goats surrounding this pool, and we did about a half an hour of headers. I do 6 headers with my goalies, and 2 of them, they don't actually touch the ball. We're worried about young forming brains and frontal lobes, as we should be. But here's what we're doing and why we're doing headers. One of the things that we want to think about is the goalie's hip angle when they're in their base position and shot blocking, and getting them to get in the habit of having their head start every move. If you watch a lot of the goals that go in, and you watch it in slow motion, very often you'll see the goalie, like if I'm here at the near post, you'll see the goalie come up, the ball's low, they come back down, they're swinging, they're taking this circuitous path to the ball, they're not what we call closing the door, which I'll get to in a moment, and stepping directly to the ball. And so when we do these headers, we have the goalie's partner about this far away, and we throw 2 headers directly to them, one just a little bit to each side, and then one all the way up in each corner. And the idea is when the goalies are doing these headers, that we're keeping our hip angle the same. You don't want, and you can stand from the side and see if your goalie's doing this. What you don't want is for your goalie's hips to drop and come up. When we're shot blocking, we want to be coming up and out to meet the ball. And so by starting just with 2 headers, it reminds the goalie to come up and out and meet the ball. So the next 2 that we do are just to the side. And this is where, again, I'm trying to get you to not just know what we should be doing, but what to look for in goalies making errors. So when we go just a little bit to each side, I'd say about half of the younger goalies that I start training open the door. So my shoulders are square to the ball's here, and they come up and head the ball here, and they open the door, and the ball goes off to the side. And the ball going off to the side is a symptom of the door opening. And what we want to do is have the goalies come up and out, keep the hip angle up, keep the door closed, head the ball back to their partner so that they're here, not here. Because when we're doing our shot blocking, not only by opening the door takes off less of the goal, but it pulls the lead hand back. So this is a really simple way, just starting with headers, to see is their hip angle correct? Are they opening or closing the door? And then the last 2 we do are called impossibles, where we literally throw the ball to the corner, and we're trying to have the goalie feel their head pulling their body to the corner. Because we want every single shot that they're going for to have their head starting the move. The first millisecond of the move should be head starting the move. Whether it's a high shot, low shot, head is starting the move. So once we've established that, we've got our headers. It's the basis, moving our head to the ball, keeping our shoulders square. We do pull downs. It's important to, when you're having your goalkeepers do pull downs, to remind them that we are in the midst of creating good habits. Like we're not just warming up. And I think this is one thing that's important to do, is to sort of divorce warming up from fundamentals focus from conditioning. So when you're warming up, the only thing you're doing is getting your body warm, and you're stretching and you're doing some sprints. And then when you're going to fundamentals, the only thing you're doing is focusing on mentals. You're not just warming up and doing your fundamentals at 80%, and you're not building conditioning into fundamentals. Actually, my first year coaching with Coach Lynch at Saddleback College, the Capo Valley Cougars, and Kim was doing sets of 30 high corners. And so her and anyone's last 30 high corner, last of 30, kind of look like this. And then shots from the outside, she did what she'd practiced doing, because she was building her conditioning into her fundamentals. And so I would much rather have the goalie go do 10 minutes of conditioning, which we'll talk about and is in the packet, and then come back and do sets of 6 really explosive high corner fundamentals. So again, we're separating warming up from fundamentals focus from conditioning. So with our pull downs now, this is really core to the rest of our foundation of fundamentals. And again, we're looking at hip angle. I had Jimmy Sandman, who was the starting goalie for Stanford for 2 years, until about 2 years ago when the next Menlo goalie took over for him. I coach at Menlo. I had Jimmy come back to one of our goalie combines, and I said, I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you in like sharing what you've been doing at Stanford. So I had the goalies do high 10s, which I thought like, oh, maybe I should have actually coached him a little bit, where he wanted the goalies facing each other and coming up and giving each other a high 10. This is great, because what it forces them to do is to maintain their hip angle. If they drop their hips, it pulls their hands away from their partner and they can't actually give them a high 10. So when I start working with younger goalies, I actually have them do like 4 high 10s. It's a chance for them to feel what it means to come up and out and meet something in front of them and feel their hips staying up. And from that, we then go right into our pull downs. And again, the pull down is a shot just directly to the goalie, just above, and you're reminding them of the core fundamentals that we've already started. Feel your head pulling your body up and out the ball, keeping your hips up, meeting the ball out in front. And again, one of the things you'll see goalies tend to do is they want to get the control of the shot by swinging at it. We want to get control of the shot by coming up and out and meeting it in this good balanced fashion, hips up, head and body to the ball, shoulder square, where our body, by meeting the ball, is controlling it. So again, we've got these building blocks from our headers to our pull downs, and next to what I think is the most important part of this progression, even though it's not our high corners yet, is our a step. So I'm going to utilize this video, the step up from last year's Las Vegas conference. I realized I couldn't just repeat what we did last year, so was sleeping. So the step drill is something I did with Bronco every day at Stanford. I got to Stanford ready for the big, shiny, fancy goalkeeping coaching, and I got an 85-year-old Hungarian who claims to have warmed up for his Olympic Games by smoking a cigarette and taking a shot of whiskey. But what we did this step drill, it's true, and he would stand on the side of the deck, and he would take a step and throw the ball, like as slow as a water polo ball can move. And a step, must step fast. I'm thinking like, this is not what I signed up for. It turned out to be hugely important to creating this the sense of core fundamentals. So 6:48.
Jack, just to let you know, this isn't 12 years ago. This is probably close to 16, 17 years ago. Because I remember when this happened. I remember when this was filmed.
Yeah, I don't know what that comment is supposed to do here, but just since we are truth seekers, there you have it. Thanks. I remembered you didn't like our band's new album, too. We were driving, and you said, I don't like this stuff. All right, so it actually doesn't matter that you can't hear. So this is the step move from behind. There's Wolf. So you're pointing head and body, and you can see, actually, if I freeze it when the goalie does the step move, pointing. Right, you see that the goalie should be at an angle like this. We don't want the goalie coming up and over. And again, almost almost all of the fundamentals focused training that we do, we're telling the goalie when the ball's coming and where it's going. There's absolutely some work once we get through fundamentals focus where we need to work on reaction time, blocking shots when you're off balance, when you're out of your spring-like base position. So, but because 99% of the goalkeeping that goalies do is they don't know where the ball is being shot and they don't know when it's coming, and now you're asking them to focus on all these fine motor skills, it's just overwhelming. So almost everything we do, you know where the ball's going and when it's coming. Like I said, I do this with my goalies from the deck, as Bronco did, or our goalies will do this as part of their warm-up. And the key here, you can see the shoulders are square, the head to the ball, hands out in front. Now, what I didn't do here, and actually didn't start doing until Jimmy Salmon came along, which was 6 years into coaching, until 6 years ago, never did low step. That is a major oversight for two reasons. One, very few of the shots that goalies see in a game are these perfect high corner shots. And I actually am sort of fine with saying, you know what? If they get 4 high corner bar ends, like they deserve 4 goals, and you block the rest of them. So A, very few of the shots are perfect high corners, and B, the shot block for a low shot is a different move. And I realized I would see pictures of Jimmy Salmon, the strongest legs, as he did this test set where at 5.5 minutes, the old record was like 2.5 minutes. At 5.5 minutes, he said, do we have to keep doing, like, can we just stop? His legs were so strong. He had such a wide base, again, something we'll talk about in the stretching component. But I would see so many photos of him, his whole suit out, and ball going in, because we only practice exploding up and out to meet the ball. So this seems like painfully obvious, and if you've figured that out, then it took me 10 years of goalie coaching to get to this point. Do not overlook the importance of high step. You're only going to see that here, but the low step where you're pointing here, the head and body to the ball, and this is where goalies really tend to open the door because they're turning as they're coming over their hips because it's a low shot instead of just extending through the block. So for every high shot you do, you're doing a low one. And this is really where, and there's not much more to see here. I mean, we're just taking our time, making sure that we're doing these at 100%, hands out in front, head coming down, looking down over the ball. This is where another huge gift from Bronco. I was never explosive enough until the day before, the final day before NC2A's my senior year. Every single day in practice, Jack, must be fast, must be quick like a cat. Faster, always faster. And the idea here is that we're trying to train ourselves to be more and more explosive every day. I tell my goalies that they're showing up at practice and they're this explosive, and I want them leaving this explosive. And I want that building over the course of the season. And so day in and day out, it's incremental, but over the course of the season, they're making a real impact. It's very easy to get lazy and go through the motions, but goalies, maybe more than any other position in sport, don't have time to think about what they're doing. And the faster that they can do this, wow, that is high quality service right there. The faster that they can do this move, obviously, the better, and that's a mental thing, right? So there are a number of drills we may or may not have time to get them to focus on explosiveness. But I mean, the key is you're never letting them off the hook. You want this move to be as explosive as possible every single time they do it. So from there, then we get to the high corners. So we never just jump into high corners, whereas we're trying to build up to high corners because what you want the goalkeepers to see is that high corner isn't some big fancy special move. It's actually building blocks leading up to high corners, and it's the same set of core fundamentals for the amazing high corner bar in as it is for the sort of strong side low shot. So we always have our goalies do high corners without the ball first, typically facing the goal so they can actually see where they're getting, and then it allows me from the side to see if they're coming out and meeting the ball and see what they're doing. And again, if you look at the high corner move, it's the same set of core fundamentals. The head starts the move, the shoulders stay square, the hips stay up. We do a little bit of drill work where we're working with one hand in, one hand out so that they're getting that little pop from their hands and their hands going straight to the ball, out in front, and then we work a little bit on the recovery. But what's important to see is that you're building up one set of core fundamentals. It's not that we're working on this move and then this move and you have to memorize all these skill sets. It's one skill set. And so, wake up. Let's see, So it's important to make sure that the goalie is completely set. A lot of goalies, when they're doing this, kind of drift and lunge because they know where they're lunging. We want to make sure that they're set. And then here's a great time to look at RPMs. And one of the things that really helps to increase goalies' explosiveness is getting their RPMs up. And one of the tests that we do for this, actually Dan Hackett and I did this with goalies back when we were training together and we're giving clinics, is get them in their base position and then just have them bring their elbows out and watch the leg speed increase. Ask them to maintain that leg speed and then get back into their base position. That's the level of RPMs that we want to have. And you know, I make the analogy of a stick shift, which none of these kids have ever heard of, but like you're revving the engine and then throwing it into gear, as opposed to, you know, so that way when the shot comes, the engine's already revved, throwing it into gear. Again, if you watch goalies, and we'll film our goalies from above, some of the goalies that are about a half a step behind shots, you'll see their RPM sort of idling, then the shot comes, then they ramp up the RPMs. That takes, we're trying to slice away quarters of seconds. It takes 2 revolutions to get into that high RPM speed. We want to get rid of that quarter of a second. And so the adage, the sort of bumper sticker adage that we use is don't get ready and go, be ready and go. So again, as they're getting ready to shot block, I have them really visualize. There's a shooter who's about to shoot a high corner shot. You're not going through a drill and just kind of jumping back and forth. You are preparing to get yourself to a corner instantaneously. And this is where we get the RPM focus. So getting set, and then you'll see that big push, hand and head straight to the corner. I actually don't work on the recovery move with them initially because I want to make sure we're blocking the ball. I say if you're worried about your recovery and the ball's gone in, then it really doesn't matter what you're doing afterwards. So you can see, here's where you get a chance to look at the recovery, the left leg in this case, because we've lunged to the right, and the left hand, and you're actually leaving, this hand is left behind after the lunge because you've gotten that big push. We're leaving that hand here and this leg. So we're already setting ourselves up to recover. And again, you can stand, like if you're on the deck, you can stand above your goalie and watch what happens with their legs and their recovering hand. A lot of younger goalies shut down for half a second. They just made this explosive move and their hips fall underneath their core. Now they're out of position for whatever the next. Is it a recovery? Is it another quick shot? Is it a lob? Is it another high corner? So after you've worked through the actual high corners, then you're coming back over, pulling with this hand, and set. I'm not sure if this is super helpful. Actually, it is. All right. It's like 30 seconds. Pardon? Yeah, absolutely. More from Janai, the better.
The hand never came in past the shoulders, too. A lot of boys come all like
Yep.
that at the end. I think it's very important because they're in so close on their stall, getting up twice the distance to go for a walk.
Here's the little test we do for this. Goalies often ask, well, where are my hands supposed to be? The answer is, I say, well, pull yourself out here. Pull yourself out and let's talk about this. So they're in the pool and they put their hands here. They start to pull themselves out. That's where your hands should be. That's the optimum, right? I say put your hands here. Try to do this only with your triceps. And I put your hands all the way out here and they lose that force arm. And so the answer is get ready to pull yourself out of the deck. Now stop there. Now go back into the water. And that's why you want, kind of as Janai was saying, you want to not only know where your hands should be, so to be optimized, but then you want to maintain that really tight skull, not allowing yourself to get in here or here. And we call it chairs. It's much misleading. It's in this packet. But chairs are where the goalie's actually sitting as though he or she is in a chair and just sculling here. because we rarely do coaches work on goalies' arm strength. This is actually really beneficial. And then what's interesting, especially for me, is to survey the goalies, because we train with our goalies in groups of 12. And so when we do chairs, whether we're going forward or lateral, to ask them where they're feeling the burn. And it really varies. And that's one sort of indicator to help them in the weight room. Like, where can I focus my weight training in this part of my arms to work on my sculling? But you can actually, I think we should be working on sculling a little bit more and keeping in mind where that sort of optimal placement is. These are, I mean, it's quick. I didn't really have this planned, but since we're here, and it's also kind of funny, because when I was doing these 4 lunges, Brad actually said, I remember this, he said, Jack, from across the pool, I think you're getting a little tired. Your lunges are starting to look sloppy. I said, I know, these are bad lunges. So there's swinging, right? We want to have our hands going straight to the corner, and then here you'll see the offhand kind of come out, and you're losing that big push. This is why we actually spend a little bit of time. And then this is just the drifting, the leaving early, which is a result of the drill, really. I mean, to remind goalies of the RPM focus and the sort of the 0 to 60 there. That's where I'm being heckled by Brad right there. Okay.
So, Brad, you said Brad, Jack.
Yeah.
So, as far as working in front of a cage with the goalie, is there a right or wrong facing the cage as opposed to being with your back to the cage as far as like in a game situation? Is there one where it's better, or do you?
So the question is why or what's better to have them facing the goal or away? The only reason I have them face the goal is so they can actually see where they're getting in the goal. It helps for them to know where do I have to be in order to get to the high corner, and it lets them see if their hand is going up above the crossbar too early or swinging through it, like through the corner from low to high. And also it helps because they can then see if they're coming forward. Because again, like that common error that goalies make, the goal, boy, wouldn't that be nice if the goal were this big. But they're here, a lot of goalies from the side, when they're going for corners, they drop their hips. And so they're shot blocking in the plane of their body. When a goalie shot blocks in the plane of their body, not only are they losing the chance to actually control the ball, but they're, as we all know, if it works, like they're losing a chance to take off the angle of the shot, to the corner. So they're losing a lot. When you're facing the goal, you can actually self-correct that as a goalie, because you're going here instead of here, and it's easier because you have something to gauge it against as a coach there. So the only time I have them face the goal is when they're doing high corners, working on that core set of fundamentals. And when we're working on recovery, like we'll go corner to corner, I have them face the goal so they can see if they're not, unintentionally cheating the drill. Okay. So that's our core set of fundamentals. It's summed up nicely on one page, perfecting the move. You've seen it on the video. I do briefly want to get to the lob shot because there's some nuanced differences in the way that goalies attack lob shots, but there certainly is a sort of a common set of moves. And again, I know it's hard to read about it, but as it has on this sheet. But if, we'll make the screen the goal. So the two errors that goalies make, and when we do our summer focus and we focus just on lobs, the main error, the goalie comes up here when the ball's 8 feet off the water, then the goalie falls into the water, and the best lob shot in the world as it's clearing the bar goes in, 1.5 feet off the water. So one of the things that we need to make sure goalies are doing is taking advantage of that arc and not exploding up, but staying low and exploding back. So from a fundamentals perspective, what we're trying to do is get as much of our body back into the goal, not across the goal, another common error, back to the opposite post, driving our lead hip, then pulling our torso over our hips, coming up when the ball's coming down. That's the fundamentals, and we'll have a chance to look at that really briefly here. But there is one, gosh, I can't believe both of my bad goalie examples, Jason, are Kim, because she was a sweetheart and a great little athlete. But Kim, because this is my first year of coaching and I was realizing all these things. Kim in practice did what most young goalies do when they see a lob. I hate lobs. CIF semifinals, 3 lobs were taken. Guesses on what she did? Oh, hate lobs. So one of the things that we did with Eric Meadows, who went on to play UCLA, is we had, actually I think him and Zach Wardies, if one of them didn't go for a lob, they had to go to that little taco place right across the street from Saddleback and buy the other one a smoothie, one of those little fruit smoothies, right? That they were keeping each other accountable, because this is such an awkward move. It's antithetical to the move that we've just spent X number of hours focusing on. Instead of exploding up and out to meet the ball, we're staying low. Instead of it coming out, we're going back into the goal. And then you're blocking it with the wrong hand. So it's awful, it's awkward. One of the things that I say to goalies, like right now, we just had our first set of off-season training, given that the high school season just ended. And I say, right now there's 0 pressure. I don't care if you block any lobs from December and January. I want you going for every single lob. Whether it's one of those where you thought it was a hard shot and then they lobbed it and it went in and you're 2 seconds behind, go for it. Because in January, you're going to be 1 second behind. And 3 months later, you're going to be a half second behind. But if you never get yourself into the habit of doing this awkward move every time you see a lob, you'll never get into the habit of doing it. If the lob's going over the goal, go for it. If it's going outside of the goal, whatever it is. And then when you get your habits down such that you're going for every lob and your fundamentals are good, then when it's going over the goal, you'll stop and you'll call for the counter ball, and we'll go. But until that point, until you're in the habit of going for every lob, then you're going for every lob, and if you're not, you're doing push-ups, you're buying a smoothie, whatever it is. So that's sort of the mental focus, and then just like anything else, you're practicing lobs. We have our goalies practice a lot of lobs without the ball, just doing them over and over again, and then we'll have our partners just take lobs. And then when you get to the point when you have that down, then you can practice lobs, have your partner fake it, you come up for the fake, then lob. Then we introduce strong side or lob, and we give them only 2 options, so they have to start reacting to an actual shot. But we build the progression up from being in the mental framework of going for every lob, having the proper habits of lob blocking, and then introducing those nuances. So you can actually see, nice to be back in San Diego. The 12:15. So you see there, the goalie in this video has stayed relatively low, right? It was low to here. Now I'm coming up and out for the ball and reaching as it's coming down. And my head, if you think we have one from the above coming up, we can see my head is actually landing just about on the goal line if it's going to be like that amazing, bar in lob shot. So I think we go to the above. Yeah. So you can see that right leg stepping back. There's the big push. I'm still low in the water, right? My chin is probably still in the water here. Now I'm about halfway across the goal. Now I'm coming back and extending, and you can see my head landing right about on the goal line. So, right, the trajectory is that angle. We'll watch one more of these, and then push the hips back. And again, it's really helpful as a coach to stand right above the goalie as they're doing this, because very often they just want to start doing that move. And when they do that, I explain them. I say, watch my shorts. They're going to go that way. And as soon as half of my body has gone that way, and I want the rest of my body to be, if you do the geometrics, 9.5 feet this way, I'm out of time. There's just no way I can do that. If those other here, they start the move, their hips have already gone the wrong way. It's going to be impossible to get back to that shot. So to have them do here, and if they have to break it down because it is so awkward, just have them see how far they can push their hips across the goal and then just stop and do it again. Push your hips back. And now once they're here, the third or fourth time, now do your move. They come up. They're, oh my gosh, I'm at the post. I did it. You see learning happening before your very eyes. So, yeah.
It's like a reverse skull for a field blocker, for a field player, and a push. Is the push with your hands?
Yeah, you're doing everything you can to propel yourself backwards. So it's really, you only have time for a push, and then this is where there's little nuances. Some goalies bring this lead hand out so that it doesn't, get stuck trudging through the water. I don't like that. It doesn't feel good to me, and theoretically, it's like, having to carry a weight across the water, and you can still get like mini sculls as you're moving your hand back across. So for me, it's a big push and then sculling to here. I mean, there was Larry Burkett, who's an All-American at Stanford ahead of me, would literally backstroke into the cage. And it was ugly and didn't work for me. I tried it. The guy was phenomenal at lob shot blocking. So I think Dante at the time, said, well, Dante didn't say anything about goalkeeping. Bronco at the time said, Larry, keep doing that. Jack, we're going to work on the regular old technique. So like with that example, it would be silly to tell Larry, oh no, you're supposed to block lobs this way. So there's a little bit of, if it works, keep doing it. And that did work. Janai, do you see any tweaks? Like, do you do anything differently?
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
Just not waste don't waste any energy going down.
Yeah.
It comes straight out of this position, so all of a sudden you're like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Breaststroke kick with your arms, and then a karate chop either through the water or across the water or down the water.
You want to make sure that when goalies are practicing it, they start to feel really comfortable, but you realize they're practicing it like this, and in which case the strong side near shot goes 100% of the time. So you want to make sure they're starting in that base position here and shutting down strong side. That's our priority. That's the shooter's first instinct, is to go strong side. Then from here, it's, we can watch it again if that's helpful, push and drop here. Yeah.
So if you stepping with your leg, and it looks like you are in the water as well, do you bring your legs and tuck up? What's your thought? I mean, is it, you're doing that motion, that's kind of how
I mean,
you
it's, yeah.
stepping over. Because I was taught earlier to kind of pendulum, bring your legs up so that you kind of fall back and then rest your kick into the water as well as fall.
I just,
So like,
the,
you like this, you bring your legs up as you're starting to go backwards, and then you have that breaststroke kick.
so this would be a little bit of a, if that really worked for the goalie, then I wouldn't tweak it. Like, I would have them try both. To me, it doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to cover as much ground if I think if I understand you correctly, if I'm here.
Your hands are pushing the top
Right.
over, and the bottom has got less pull underwater.
Because I want to, if I could, I'd like to have my hips just magically appear here and then just go over. So that, that's the
You're
thinking.
moving your center of gravity.
Yes. Yeah, Janai.
Another thing to add to this, because most goalies don't just get bottom, they get pump fake first.
Right.
Have them practice either with a little push down with the hand with the imaginary pump fake, or a little movement up, and then
Right.
still get back into the exact same movement.
Yeah, that was like, as I had mentioned, sort of the end of the progression where you're actually coming up first. And while we're on that, you'll see in here one of the things as we go back, and we're starting to segue into implementing some of this in our training and looking at drills. But we want to be careful of always doing our pull downs, our step, our lobs from this nice, like, one sec, right? As you're saying to the shooter, get my perfect high RPMs. Okay, you're directly center cage. Go ahead, I'm ready. That's really important to do from the beginning so that you can just simplify. But after you get past the basics, we want to make sure that we're taking the shots from different areas in front of the cage, because we get, 3 shots a game from directly center cage, right? And that the shots are spread out. That when USC started to have players developing fakes we'd never seen before, Chris Aguilera and I started doing all of our pull down and step work out of our spring-like base position. I use the analogy of a spring with goalies because I want goalies to kind of stay in that good compact position for as long as possible. Right? If I'm trying to touch the ceiling, I want to be here and not get out of that spring-like position. But when you come up for a fake, you by definition are out of the spring-like position and still need to be able to do these moves from here and just not as spring-like because you've let the spring out. So all we would do is we would add 2 fakes and say, I'm going to fake it twice and then shoot here. And so we would actually come up, stay up, and still have to explode to the shot and do our proper fundamentals. So it is important, as many of you are high-level coaches coaching experienced goalies, that you're not letting them get away with doing all of their fundamentals focus in this nice, calm, balanced base positions, center cage, shooter at 7 meters, that you're putting a little strain on them, forcing them to move. And again, a number of the drills in this, in the book, which I've handed to you, have drills that are briefly explained to get goalies to do that. So that's the kind of fundamentals focus for shot blocking and lob shots. If we can move on for the last 10 minutes to drills and conditioning, unless there's any questions on that, because I'd rather have goalies and their coaches know how to coach their fundamentals and get them proper fundamentals, as opposed to really cool, nuanced drills. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on, I'm sure you have thoughts, but what are your thoughts about just moving in front of the cage as the ball's moving around the perimeter, whether it be 6-on-5,
Yeah.
moving quickly? So any thoughts about that?
That's a nice question. One of the things that I guess there's two things. One, we want to make sure that goalies are making, and it's mentioned briefly in the move page, that their shoulders are squared to the ball. So as the ball is being passed, I'm not moving like this, even though it actually might be a little bit faster, but I'm opening my shoulders to square off to the ball, so that even though by virtue of this great offensive move or bad defense, I'm out of position geometrically speaking in the goal, my body is in position as the player hopefully is faking the ball for me, which many, at least high school players, will do for goalies, where my body is in proper position. My shoulders are squared so that when he takes this shot and I'm out of position, I can still do this move that I have perfected over time. And then as he's faking it, I move to here. So two things. One is that they get comfortable squaring their shoulders to the ball as they're moving instead of moving then squaring their shoulders. This is why you see a lot of goalies really off balance when they're taking shots off the cross pass, because their body's not balanced. They're moving in a way that might be a tiny bit faster, but doesn't leave them any hope of blocking a shot. So square the shoulders, and then as much as possible, keep the hips underneath them. Though there are times, actually Jason and I were recently sort of texting about this, and it's hard to capture in a text message, but sometimes if it's a really high arced pass, or you've got a good shot blocker in the way, this is getting a little advanced, but you actually know you can sort of cheat a little bit, because I say, wow, this is a really high pass. I can actually get over like this and be set by the time this guy catches the ball with the shot blocker here. So I am not going to square my shoulders because I have time. Whereas if it's a really well-made pass and I'm playing at a high level, and this is why goalies are always behind shots when they go to the next level. My poor JV goalie just played his first varsity level scrimmage, and he was a good half a second behind everything because the ball's getting zipped to teammates instead of slightly arced. So he's trying to get over like this, but he's a half a second behind, so he's taking shots like this, whereas at the JV level, he could do that because the pass was arced and the players caught it and faked it. So it's a little bit for the goalies knowing the level that they're playing at, knowing what type of pass is being made, so they know what they can sort of get away with. But the simple example is, hips under your shoulders and squaring the shoulders either before or as you're moving. I feel like there's another question here.
Yeah, just the basic spring position for just beginning goalies.
Yeah.
Since I didn't have much goalie understanding before this is great.
Good.
I've been trying to get them to even just work their legs, right? And so I've been kind of judging it based on how high they get out of the water when they're preparing for a shot. And so what you're saying is concentrate on the RPM more than where their shoulders are.
Yeah, and there's a slight, I guess I would say this isn't universally accepted, but yeah, I wouldn't do that. It does, the logic behind it is, well, if I already have to go from here to here to get to these shots, I might as well just start here. And then but what you're giving up, to me, overcompensates for what you're gaining, which is this much air time. So instead, I'd rather have the goalies, shoulders peaked, chin slightly off the water, in that really good spring-like position, high RPM, so they can pounce. Because as any goalie knows, once you've been brought out for a fake, you lose that. And when you watch young goalies on one-on goalies or out of set, when they get up like this, now they're stuck. Like, yes, they're closer to where the ball might go, but if the ball goes here, the spring is gone. So even like with the shooter here, I'm going to have the goalies at least bring it in. They've got to be out, but they're still going to leave something. So when you shoot, I can still have a chance to spring to a less than perfect shot. That's my take on it. Yeah.
So, at what point because there is a point as the level gets higher that you as a goalie have to make a move before the shot is fully released, depending on where they are. And like if you're getting a shot from a one goalie, they're coming in, you have to at least come out of your spring.
Yeah.
You have to come up a little bit.
Right.
But I'm coaching college.
Yep.
So it's not college fitness. The shot comes a little slower sometimes depending on the size of the. But what is the
I would like goalies to stay in as much of a spring-like position as possible while still giving themselves a chance to shot block. So as I mentioned, like when the ball comes into set, if the center is here, you'll see a lot of goalies. And what I did up until my junior year in high school, I just came out as high as I could, and it was basically like this object that I was hoping the ball would bounce off. And then we changed that, and I instead used the time that the pass was coming in to come up and out and get my body into a position that would take off the angle, but still be here, and almost like I was reading the center like I would read any other shooter. And very few shutters, especially at the high school level, but even college, I mean, I think of like Ryan Bailey, the ball would come in, and like all of a sudden, somehow, it was being shot. So I knew if, for whatever reason, I guess at the club level I was playing against Ryan Bailey, I didn't have time to do that, and I better get here, because it's gonna be shot as soon as it lands. Very few centers in high school, even in college, they're moving, they're trying to get the shot. I'm watching, I'm in my spring, I'm watching. Here comes the shot, they're going here. Yeah, my hands have to be out because I've learned from experience, a shot from about 2.5 meters away with me here, I don't have enough time to get here. And that's, again, there's a sort of this Aristotelian mean where you're saying like, well, can't have my hands in, can't have my hands straight out because I give up the spring. How about like a little bit up? I need them more than that. How about a little bit down? Gosh, I could probably get away with more and still maintain the spring. And so you're fine-tuning that for every situation.
And for each goalie.
Yeah. It's a slightly annoying answer, but it's actually...
Can I ask a question that might help both of them? So at what distance do you start going to a more vertical position?
Yeah. Again, it depends on the shooter, on the angle. That's why in my head it feels like...
I mean, I've read
it's in a...
Once they start coming in,
I would hate, I've never put a black and white on that because it really is different for different goalies. And different goalies are doing different sort of baits. I mean, sometimes your hands are really low. Sometimes you're coming up too early and then coming down. Sometimes you're coming up too early and coming down too early and then coming back up. This is actually the only injury I ever had as a goalie playing in Italy. I came up too early because I knew their coach said that to shoot high. And then I went down too early on purpose and came up as my hands were coming down, and he shot, and I knew it was coming out on my teeth, and he shot it, and I chipped this tooth. So there are a lot of different things going on in each of those interactions where I really don't like to put a sort of a cut and dried, even with like a young goalie. Like I want the goalie to have a little bit of flow, saying like, just do what feels good. And if you're going to take 10,000 one-on goalies. Every time you take one, learn where your hand's a little bit too high, a little bit too low, or your hips too high, too low, and that they're honing in. What I don't want, what a lot of goalies do, is they just come all the way out. So that's an easy no, and that's somewhat common. So that should be helpful right there. And they learn very quickly if my hands are here, the ball's over their shoulder before they have a chance. So they'll learn that, and from there it's just kind of honing.
And the biggest difference of male goalies versus female goalies is you rarely see a male goalie under 6 feet tall, and you rarely see a female goalie under 6 feet tall.
So I have two conditioning drills and that I really like. Actually, really the only two conditioning drills that I do with my goalies. And again, there are, I think, 8 different conditioning drills in the packet. The two that I like the most because it's relatively safe for the goalies on their knees at any level. And also, if done well, they are brutally exhausting and effective. So the first one is Broncos, and this is what we would do with Bronco. And it's very basic. A lap of Broncos is I start at the wall, and you usually do a set of 8. And when I'm walking, you're walking at 100%. Again, so I want the work that my goalies are doing at 100%. Because goalies, think about what the goalie's doing, they're sitting and blowing bubbles for about 40 to 50% of the game. Which is fair. It's partly why we get heckled for other reasons by our counterparts in the field. And then they're working kind of hard, and then they're working really hard for 15 seconds with this huge explosion and then blowing bubbles. So I like to have a lot of the conditioning that we do kind of mirror that so they're getting the same sort of physiological focus in practice as they do in the game because that's what we're training for. So Broncos, you're going 100%, you're up as high as you can go, with your hands in the water, walking forward as long as you can hold it. And if you're in terrible shape, just coming off of like a 1-month hiatus, you're not going to be able to be very high and you're not going to go for very long. If you're in great shape near the end of the season, you're going to be able to be out very high and walk probably to half court. So it's tailored to the goalie, and when they can't hold it anymore, come down and do 0. Do nothing for 10 seconds. Catch your breath, and then you're up all out walking. Come down and do 0, and after the lap, an easy lap breaststroke recovery. And then one to the left, and it's important. I like to build movement because goalies are very rarely just sitting in one spot, egg beatering. We're always moving, and that lateral movement's hugely important, as we all know, to goalkeepers to get ourselves in position so we can do this move that we've been trying to perfect. So when you're going laterally, making sure the goalies aren't leaning to the side, which is they'll tend to do because you kind of like put this little outboard motor and then you're off to the races, making sure that their hips are below their torso, and it's the same thing. Up, driving the lead leg, down, rest, and then backwards just as well. If you watch ice hockey goalies train, they're training in every, like ice hockey goalies are supposed to be the best skaters on the team because they're making these minute little moves in front of the cage that have to be exact. When you're going backwards, making sure that they're not falling on their back, which they tend to do, but are actually in that good leaning forward position. So those are Broncos. And then firewalk, which I think I do. I actually have, I have my goalies do this with each other, but Bronco did it with us on the deck, and I will do it occasionally with my goalies on the deck. So what's important, there's my brother. What's important in firewalk, this is great, and you can do it with a regular ball or as you're getting into the season. I mean, obviously, early on in the season, I don't have our goalies doing any weight. But as they get in better and better shape and they have a proper warm-up and they've been stretching, we'll start doing this with a heavy ball and then a heavier ball. So the idea is when they're in the water doing it and they're facing each other about from here to the chair apart, hands are out the whole time. I've got the ball stays in front. All the work we're doing as goalies, our hands are here. We're not bringing it behind our head. I'm leading with my head as we do with every shot, exploding straight up, making the pass, and my partner who's receiving the ball is exploding straight up, catching it, keeping the ball off the water, right? So forcing your legs, almost like the gravity drill, which you saw listed, you're forcing your legs to keep you up instead of just flopping into the water, and then walking. So that the ball stays out and your hands stay out the whole time, and you're moving laterally. You go 5 passes each, take about a 10 seconds rest, 5 passes each, and then an easy recovery lap. This is brutal if it's done well. And it's so effective because you're getting lateral movement, it's focused on your legs only, you're getting a bit of endurance and some explosiveness as well. So this is, with our goalie, so you can see he's exploding straight up, keeping the ball off the water, exploding straight up, that's pretty good height there, keeping his hands out. What I'd like to see a little bit less from Robbie was the first goalie when I went to coach at Menlo 15 years ago, played at Harvard. A little bit of, as he's coming up here, we want drive straight down, drive your head and core straight up. So I would actually make it's good. This is like a A minus. If I had it to do over again, I would have had him refocus on making sure he's exploding straight up instead of here. But as you see, so we're walking laterally, and then we go back to the other side. Yeah. And again, the goalies, our goalies do this pretty much without me on deck because you don't need me and in the water back and forth. Like I said, you can build the heavy ball weights up to make it more challenging. This is phenomenal. Yes?
You're never going to take a heavy ball back here.
No. Yeah. So we're already a tiny bit over time, and I did in my head want to make sure that, because there's just a ton by definition that we didn't cover. I wanted to make sure we got the core fundamentals to you and that you feel relatively comfortable with those, and then a little bit of conditioning. And like I said, there are a lot of drills in there that are a little bit more game situation focused, a lot of conditioning drills, a lot of ideas for testing the goalie. There's the map of the goalies, which I started using 2 years ago, and actually John Wilson, who now just earned the starting job at Johns Hopkins 2/3 of the way through the season as a freshman, created a computer program to catalog every shot that was taken on him in every game, where it was taken, if it went in or if it didn't, and started to discover trends. And this is what, I want my goalies to author their training a little bit and to come into the next week and say, well, let's see your goalie map, John. And he pulls out this spreadsheet and this computer program and says, wow, we've got to work on cross-cage low shots because look at all these shots from the righty flat that were going in cross-cage low. You're still coming up early and that's allowing the ball to go under. So with that goalie map, we were able to see trends of goals that were being scored against him and also where these shots were being taken. So that's what's in there. And we have, 1 minute for questions. I'm going to be around, so I'd love to talk. I'll be here tomorrow. Yeah.
Real quick, I didn't see anything in here. My high school goalie, comes up, overcommits shots, things like that. Really light in the hands. What kind of strength conditioning?
Light meaning, oh, got it, yes.
He can knock it down, hits him in the hand.
Got it.
Goes in.
This is a great place to end. Is the weight training, I forget which of the 40.
Gotta pick through it a little bit.
So and actually I did a lot of this with Wolf, because if you watch Wolf shoot, you'll understand where he gets a lot of the power. I hyperextended my elbow playing over in Europe, and so I was out for a year. I had Tommy John surgery, and they said, you've got to I was a twig in high school. So a ton of forearms. So this isn't even a good, all 4 quadrants. This is really good for really all water polo players, but especially goalies. So here, and then set of 20 with your elbow down here, and then set of 20 here, and then grabbing the dumbbell, standing here. So you're getting all 4 quadrants, biceps, triceps. It was hugely important for me, because I could just feel after my year off, and I was lifting weights for a year, I was so much stronger. So again, I don't want to go into the next talk too much, but like I said, I'll be around today, and this is an awesome turnout. I'm really happy that we're getting this information out, so thanks for having me.